Age of Mythology Retold is the newest and perhaps last addition to Microsoft's brand-wide revival of Age of Empires. Starting with Age of Empires 1 Definitive back in 2018, and continuing with the Definitive Edition remakes of Age of Empires 2 and 3, Age of Mythology was the last game in the series left untouched. Until today. Though that's not to say we might not see an Age of Empires 5, or Age of Mythology 2 one day down the line. Man, wouldn't that be the day? But back to the present, Microsoft's revitalization of Age of Empires has been a great success. Age 2 and 3 Definitive have picked up and sustained large player bases, and even Age of Empires 4 has captured its own unique audience. To the point now, where Age of Empires as a series enjoys concurrent player counts well into the tens of thousands, enough to where if they were counted together, they would be in the top 20 or so games on Steam. And those numbers say nothing to what would be gained from adding the Xbox players and Xbox app users on PC. It's fair to assume then that Microsoft are hoping Age of Mythology Retold can secure its own place among its revived brethren. The Extended Edition released a decade ago did okay, but it pales in comparison to the feature set of this new release. So maybe the second time around in re-releasing Age of Mythology will prove to be the real winner. To the point where it justifies new expansions, DLC releases, and maybe even a sequel, as it did for its historical counterparts. And personally, I think it just might, because Age of Mythology Retold is a great remake, full to the brim of thoughtful upgrades and redesigns that bring this 20-year-old classic back into the modern era. But it remains to be seen whether it will be able to secure its future success, or if it will simply fade away as its initially engaged players filter back into their preferred strategy games like Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. But that's impossible to predict, so for now, let's get into what makes Age of Mythology Retold great, and why I think it might just be able to hold on to the success that it certainly deserves. Now, apologies if I'm repeating myself from my impressions video, but Age of Mythology Retold looks damn good. It captures the vibe and the look of the original while successfully transporting it into 2022. The technical options for customization here are immense, and in extremely stark contrast to the last game I reviewed, in Sins of a Solar Empire 2. There are just so many settings to mess with here, you really can tailor it to how you like, if you're one of those people. I am. And don't be fooled by this just being a lowly RTS game, because with full ray tracing and cranked settings, it'll look great, and crush all but the strongest of PCs. I do wish the in-game benchmark tool gave a few more stats and graphs, but hey, I'm glad it's there all the same. Lastly in the settings, I'm impressed with how many other options there are for making the game exactly how you like it. From auto-queuing villages to alternative HUD layouts, to controller tuning and remapping. Because yes, this game supports a controller and is available on Xbox. It's an impressive display of options, and it continues Microsoft's track record of having 1,000,001 ways to improve your experience and increase the accessibility of their games. It also ran really well for me, not just in performance but also in stability, though I have heard some reports of people experiencing crashes and a few other issues, but for me it's been rock solid. And I'm glad that the performance problems that I ran into with the beta were nowhere to be found in this release build. Nice job. But yeah, as for the visuals themselves, AOM Retold looks fantastic. Comparing it to the original game makes it clear, this remake is absolutely night and day. But it still feels like Age of Mythology despite a 20-year tech and art overhaul. An impressive feat considering how easily that vibe could have been lost in a full rebuild of a game this old. It gives me the same vibes as AoE 2 Definitive, retaining the look and feel of their progenitor while successfully bringing them into the modern day. Not looking too out of place next to current releases. And oh boy, the music continues this trend and is chock full of absolute bangers. Yes, there is definitely some nostalgia involved here, but the music just goes so hard, and I reckon it's some of the best that the Age series ever delivered. Except maybe for Age of Empires 1, a personal favourite of mine. The quality of the remastered music is top notch, and combined with the sound effects and voice acting, some of which was improved after receiving player feedback from earlier betas, the soundscape of AOM Retold is very, very good. And that's nothing to say about the gameplay, which, as you might have guessed, is also very, very good. I'm not going to get into the minutiae here, as I did do a breakdown of Age of Mythology not too long ago, and frankly, not much has changed here, aside from a few key differences which we'll mention. And I presume that you kinda know the basics already. To put any worries to rest though, AOM Retold doesn't make any horrific decisions or alterations to the core loop that make this inherently different. The gameplay loops are the same, the factions are the same, the gods are the same, except for the new one, and yeah, it's all the same. Which is great, because as we all know, Age of Mythology is already a fantastic experience, and honestly, it'd be tough to expect anything else, considering the track record Microsoft have with the Age series remasters. All of them have, gameplay-wise, been nearly one-to-one copies of their original releases, for better or for worse. The biggest differences you'll find in AOM Retold are in its accessibility and usability. The UI is better laid out, there are more options to customize it as you see fit, there's more hotkeys, more ways to engage with mechanics like big idle villager flags and unit auto-queuing, as well as villager automation and more to help newer players with their build orders and lack of efficiency. But still, there are some changes to the core game, the main one being rechargeable god powers. Because, yeah, in the original, they were all one-time use, but now they recharge on a timer and can be used multiple times throughout a mission or match. I'm not enough of an AOM professional to understand the finer nuance and impact this will have on the PvP scene or anything like that, but from where I'm sitting as a campaign and PvE player, this is a great change and it will only improve my experience. Playing Age of Mythology again with this modern version really did make me appreciate the diversity found in all of its factions and god options. I think especially because I've played a lot of AoE 2 and 3 Definitive in the past couple of years, it made me realise just how unique all of these choices are, and how, at their core, they do function quite differently. This is obviously nothing new, but if you haven't played AOM in a while, or perhaps haven't played it at all, I think you'll come to appreciate the breadth of playstyles it has to offer, and the impact each choice you'll make has on your gameplay. Because while they don't drastically change your game plan, like you're still going to be piling the biggest number of units possible onto your enemy to send them back on Air New Zealand Flight 901, the factions and god choices do affect the moment-to-moment gameplay, particularly around base management and development. And there's a lot to experience and hone your skills at, across the 4 factions and many minor god options that there are to pick from. Speaking of lots to experience, all the modes that you'd expect to hear, plus 1 or 2 extras. There are all the campaigns from the original and expansion, plus skirmish, multiplayer, custom scenarios made in the editor, and a new Mythic Battles section of standalone scenarios that currently has just 1 Mythic Battle, which is included in the Premium edition of the game. Though that will almost certainly go on sale as a standalone DLC for the base game one day soon, and assumedly there will be more of these mythic battles added as we get further on into the lifespan of AOM Retold. I think if nothing else, this remake has succeeded in modernising Age of Mythology, in multiple ways. Presentation-wise, it's clearly a significant upgrade, and it looks on par with other RTSs released in the past couple of years. But perhaps more importantly is how it modernised its accessibility, both in terms of platform availability and customization options once you get into it. Whether you're playing on Xbox or PC, Steam or the Xbox Store, PvE, PvP, or anything in between, it's never been easier to enjoy Age of Mythology in its best rendition. It was a blast to play in 2003, and it's still a goddamn blast to play now. According to the Premium Edition, we have 2 DLC expansions on the cards for Age of Mythology Retold. One will be a new Chinese pantheon, presumably a remake of the god-awful Tales of the Dragon, and the second something completely new. Past that, it's fair to assume that if the game does well, there will be more content on the way. Aside from AoE 1 Definitive, all of the other Age remakes have gotten quite a few new expansions of varying sizes, so there's no reason to assume that that won't be the case here. providing it has the player numbers to justify it, of course. There's also the potential of mods to give the game more legs, and there's already some popping up in the in-game browser. I'm not sure exactly what to expect here, whether it's just going to be smaller offerings like what's in AoE 2 Definitive, or if the developers are hoping people will take it and run to create some bigger projects. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Either way, it's great that the tools are there. The same goes for the in-game editor, which is similar to what's in Age 3 Definitive. From what I've seen of it, it looks really powerful, and I hope to see some great creations in the coming weeks and months. Age of Mythology Retold is a great W for Microsoft, and another win for RTS players of all kinds. Whether you're a PvP god, or a single-player connoisseur, such as myself. I highly recommend it. You can pick it up on Steam, or Xbox now, it's also on Game Pass. And if you do, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks to my patrons and YouTube members who keep the lights on here. That's Takayo, Bad Ghosts, Sean, Grey Spirit 4, George, King Thickums, Pavel, Bram, Christian, Dan, Orion, Dasrufkin, and Cameron. And my paladins, of course, Johnny, Marika, Age of Cause, Joe, Tank, and Hyperion. Lena asks, what time, place, or setting do you think is underutilized? We've obviously had a good number of World War II, Roman medieval RTS games. So what options would you like to see more of? That's a tough one because, like you say, we've had a lot of RTSs across a lot of different settings. If I had to choose one, it'd probably be like a new Star Wars RTS because I just want Empire at War 2. Otherwise, I do love the Age of Empires 1 Stone Age vibes, so maybe an RTS that caps out in an era like that and goes back even further in history. Sparrow asks, with the success of Sonic the Hedgehog, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, Super Mario Bros. Movie, how big of a resurgence are we seeing in movies based on video games? And which franchises that you've covered could get its own film? Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that big studios are catching on that video game franchises can pull in massive numbers. I do think it's funny that it seems we either get one of two extremes. It's either completely awful like Borderlands or Halo, or fantastic like Fallout, Last of Us, or the Mario movie. My top pick by far would be a Mass Effect miniseries set during the First Contact War. But honestly, the upcoming Secret Level miniseries with a bunch of different universes as standalone episodes is probably in my top 3 choices for video game adaptations. I really can't wait, and I hope we get more seasons with games like Mass Effect, Elder Scrolls, Dragon Age, Left 4 Dead, Dead Space, Valvedeck, Killing Floor, Payday, Stalker, Titanfall, XCOM. Dan asks, with Mountain Dew and Doritos being obvious gamer foods, what snacks do you have when you game? Or do you have snacks at all? I do. My favourite would probably be a Pepsi Max and some grapes. But failing that, I can't go wrong with a coffee and a piece of Vogel's toast with Fix and Fog peanut butter. Let's go. Gan Hunter asks, what Age of Mythology faction do you prefer playing as? Probably the Egyptians are my go-to. I love their designs and their god powers, and I do like the vibe they have with their unique units. I guess if you've seen my Total Warhammer video, you probably could have guessed that. Tomb Kings, let's go. Lena asks, do you think Microsoft will ever answer your emails again? I hope so, because I can't wait to receive my Age of Empires 5 closed beta key. Wait, is that under NDA? Nah, they'd never get this far into the video to see it anyway. Thanks everyone, see you in the next one, cheers.